Having a lot of investors and a big have table, obviously has its benefits, because if you have a problem, you can get on the phone and hopefully, there's more people to help solve those problems. And it's also, nice to feel like you're on a journey with other people.
Welcome to Empowerista, female entrepreneurs finding freedom and fulfillment in their life and career. I'm your host, Alex Wehrley, the founder and CEO of Empowerista, an award-winning producer and national TV host, seen on platforms like Business Rockstars, Entrepreneur.com, and Amazon Prime. I am so excited to share my candid conversations with successful women as they reveal the tips and truths they've learned on their entrepreneurial journey. My guest today is Rachael McCrary, the co-founder of RxBra, a medically effective bra with health benefits that's also comfortable and cute. As a serial entrepreneur, primarily in the lingerie industry, Rachael has successfully raised venture capital, won 15 pitch competitions, and is an all-around seasoned startup founder. During our chat, she gives insight into the pros and cons of having investors, when she knows it's time to start a new business, and what you should focus on as an early-stage startup. Let's take a listen. So glad to have you here. So let's just first of all talk about kind of the evolution of yourself as an entrepreneur who has started many companies and what brought you to this one.
Yeah, sure. Yes, that's true. I'm an entrepreneur for life. I'm one of those people that just lays in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning with countless ideas and Googling things. I had businesses in high school, even like small businesses in the apparel industry, and have just, created small things, large things. Some things died, some things didn't really have legs, some things I couldn't find the right team, some things did really, really well. But yeah, I just love to create things. RxBra was birthed with a couple of business partners that I have, Joe and Steven. And Steven's dad is a doctor, and we were talking about, post-surgery, had anything ever been made for that space? And I said, I've actually thought about that too. There's some things that you can do. So we ordered all of the products that we could find on the market. Most of them looked like a straitjacket. There's no way that could be comfortable ever, let alone after you've had surgery and are feeling a little more sensitive.
And to be clear, this could be certainly cosmetic, but it could be after breast cancer, it could be an injury. There's lots of different medicinal reasons why somebody might need or want your bra, right?
That's right. Even a lumpectomy or removing a cyst or something like that, where you have an incision and everything is just really tender. The RX bra is medically effective for speeding up healing time, being the most comfortable option, and it has far infrared yarn technology, so it increases blood flow and circulation to actually help you heal faster.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to what you were saying, you were doing this research, understanding that there was a void in the market, kind of seeing how this would work from a medicinal standpoint, if you want to continue from there.
Yeah, so, just looking at some of the products that were on the market, and there wasn't really that much at all. They had a lot of scratchy hardware and large bands. So I decided to make the product completely seamless. So it has no cut and sew. It's not made from a pattern. It's made on a seamless machine. So we take the far infrared powder that's then put into yarn that is then infused with the nylon spandex and then knitted circularly to make one complete garment. The reason is because if she has stitches, there's nothing to obstruct that, and then it has spherical compression, so it's really, really comfortable. That, with the infrared yarn, makes it, the superior product on the market by far. And then also it's cute. So
yeah. And you want to feel cute, especially if you just had a surgery or you have an injury. Like, who says that you have to look like you just came out of surgery,
Right, yeah. And whenever we started working with the doctors that we made the bra with, they told us that after surgery, like a breast augmentation or a mastectomy, you're required to wear a compression garment for up to 8 weeks. If you don't, there can be complications, and you can even have to go in and have further surgeries. It's just headaches and painful. So we asked them, why don't they wear the garment? And they said, well, we don't know what to tell them to wear. And then the things that they buy, it's not right. And then they feel like it's not cute. And they're really excited to wear something cute right away, so they go straight into wearing an underwear bra too early, and then that can cause complications with surgery. So we wanted to make something that was medically effective but also cute so that she would actually wear it.
Yeah, so you're filling a void. I love it. So I love that you, when you were talking about your entrepreneurial journey, admitted that, hey, not everything has worked out. And I think that's really important for entrepreneurs to hear, because there's a woman that I look up to, she's an entrepreneur, Brooke Castillo. She says that success is built on a pile of failures. And I think that that is so important. And I think sometimes as women, we are more risk averse and more fearful of failure. And obviously I'm generalizing, but that often is the case. And I know I can at least speak from my own anecdotal experience that, you know, failure is scary, right? So I think it's important for us to think of failure as a good thing and think of it as learning opportunities. And you're a good example of, you've had success with businesses, but I'm sure that there were hiccups and learning opportunities along the way. Can you maybe touch on some of those?
Sure, yes, countless. I don't really see failure in the way that some people see it. I don't really like that word. It worked out for a while until it didn't, right? Like relationships. And when you experience something, that's when, you know, we learn the most. I think most people say that they learned most things on the job as opposed to in school, because you've lived it and you understand, you know, why things happen the way that they do. I just wrote an article about this, actually.
Yeah.
A few things that I've learned the hard way. One thing is partnerships. So any kind of partnerships in business, I have lived this, and then I mentor a lot of entrepreneurs, and I see this one a lot. I was actually speaking with one yesterday. They're so desperate to find the right partners. That can mean a co-founder, employees, hiring, I think, is the biggest pain point in an early business. Investors, joint ventures, and partners even outside of your organization. Like if you're doing a large marketing contract or a joint venture. You know, early stage entrepreneurs feel so isolated that any type of partnership gets them excited. You know, they're like, finally, I'm not going to be on the island alone. So they, you know, are a little short-sighted and too quick to trip over themselves to get into these partnerships. And getting into the wrong partnership is worse than being alone. And that's what I've seen cause the most problems within myself and outside. You can be a little bit aligned with someone and have some of the right ideals or a vision, but so many things need to line up, like a marriage, right? So it's really important to talk about, you know, our vision and work styles and how much we're going to work and when, and you know, what kind of partnerships we see, and then, you know, once we get those, spend a lot of time, you know, on the contracts and everyone's, you know, obligations or expectations of one another, and just being really, really clear and having uncomfortable conversations up front prevents, you know, harder conversations later. You know, listening to your market can be something else that's like a lesson to learn, and not being, you know, dead set on this vision and idea that you have of where your product can go, because we often see it very differently when we're close to it. So, you know, just being really open and listening to feedback and really taking it in, not being defensive, listening to your people that understand you and your space and people that don't, because it's all relevant.
How do you field what's good feedback versus bad feedback? Because there's a lot of noise, especially on the internet, and some of it's really good, especially if it's coming from your target audience about your product. But some of it's destructive and is not helpful, and is coming from people who don't know what they're talking about. So do you have a method for making sure that you're fielding the right feedback?
Yes. You know, you should listen to all of it. Right? I'm not saying you should necessarily like receive and take in all of it and make changes in your business because of it, but you should listen to all of it so that you can keep tabs over time of what's consistent. And then everyone likes to say that everyone said something. So I always make the entrepreneurs that I work with define everyone. Like I need you to literally tell me the names of who everyone is. And everyone typically is like 3 or 4 people, you know, when they break it down, and I ask this of myself as well. So everyone needs to be more than 10 people as a rule of thumb. If one person tells you need a nude color or a purple one, that's not enough to take on a full purchase order. If 10 people are telling you that or more, then maybe it's something to start to pay attention to, right? And keep notes and then come up with benchmarks of like, okay, well, if we get 50 pre-orders for this color, then we'll buy it. But but listening to them and staying really flexible and coachable and receiving it instead of just, being defensive and doing it the way that you want.
Okay, so it sounded like you had one more lesson learned. What is that one?
Marketing is everything. So a lot of entrepreneurs, we don't really understand that our skill set needs to be outside our primary skill set when we have a business, and sometimes it does just as much so, if not more, during certain periods. So you could have the best product in the world or the most creative service, but if people don't know about it, then it doesn't matter, right?
So true.
And things aren't as viral as one might think. So really, starting with quick marketing strategies in the beginning where you get results fast so that you can pivot them and act accordingly, as opposed to the same marketing strategy of a larger company that would be more like a long-term strategy, because if it doesn't work, you're in big trouble. So,
can you give us some examples that have worked for you as far as quick marketing strategies go?
Yeah, faster turnaround times for blogs and publications that have a shorter lead time than, say like a 6-month out publication. And then taking that social proof and turning that into paid ads as well, like using the content as good content, and then flipping that into short-term paid ads and doing like 5 or 6 different types of creatives and text to just see what works in a week or two.
Yeah, so for example, if a blogger, influencer, or even a traditional publication does a write-up or review on your product, that social proof, somebody outside of your company is saying we like it, and then maybe you boost it or create, a Facebook ad to really push that to the right people. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and doing it yourself, even if you think you're not good at it or don't like it at first, you have to in order to be able to manage a team later.
As far as the Facebook ad, or like
any type of marketing or PR in the beginning.
Okay.
And you need to understand what works for you as far as like an editor response, the storytelling method that you're using and what's effective. And also the storytelling to the consumer. Hiring a big agency with a year-out strategy that one would do for a large company. I've never seen that work in early stage, and it's one of the biggest mistakes I see people make.
Yeah, and it's expensive. Yeah, okay, so that's a big thing, is you got to learn how to be a marketer. There's a lot of hats you have to wear in the beginning. What are some of the other hats that you have to wear and be really good at when you're an entrepreneur?
Being a lawyer.
Oh, man.
A lot of contracts
But you don't learn how to do that yourself, right? You outsource the
Of course, you should have getting good counsel, but that's part of it, right? Is understanding, what's the right counsel, obtaining good counsel, not using your friend lawyer. That causes problems later.
Hey, super quick, if this episode is inspiring you, I'd be so very grateful if you did any or all of the following. Subscribe to the podcast, review the podcast, or take a screenshot of this episode and post it to your Instagram stories and tag @Empowerista so I can share your post. Your support seriously means so much and will allow me to continue making episodes. Lastly, if you'd like to read the key points from today's interview, head to empoweristapodcast.com for show notes. Yeah, so maybe let's break that down. In the first year or so, what tasks do you think are really important for you to do as a founder versus what tasks are really wiser to delegate and outsource?
Right. So yeah, the marketing I would do on my own. Legal, like unless you're an attorney in that specific area, finding the right attorney that works well for you, that has experience in your business or in early stage companies.
And that's especially for partnerships, if you're getting a patent or
raising
like
money.
That,
and then if you're going to raise money, then you really should get an early stage law firm that understands really early stage.
The nuances,
get them to defer it if they think your product's valuable or something. But you need to have a right foundation. Otherwise, you're just going to have to fix it all later, and it causes problems, and lawyers have to come in and clean up messes later, which they don't like. So no matter what, start with a good foundation, and then maybe pause on it once it's set up properly, and you don't necessarily need to do a lot more legal work until later, unless you do have contracts, employment agreements, like things like confidentiality agreements, things like that. They should be done proper counsel. but you should be able to read them and understand them yourself so that you can redline things from a business perspective, which isn't necessarily the same as a legal perspective.
Sure. Being a serial entrepreneur, you've obviously had to come to certain times where you're like, all right, time to start the new business. What was it about RxBra that made you go, okay, now's the time to start the new business. This is where I want my focus to be?
Yeah, so with RxBra, it was a little different. I wasn't like, I'm definitely going all in, balls to the wall, day one, minute one, you know. I made the product, you know, we put a website up, we emailed some doctors, started doing some wholesale and e-commerce orders, and grew it pretty slowly over the past 2 years.
Yeah, you described it as more of a side hustle, right?
Yeah, definitely a side hustle. You know, it's a one product company. It's not, you know, the hardest thing I've ever done. But then, you know, after, you know, Q1 of this year, I was looking at the numbers, and again, as someone who advises other companies, like we hit all of the benchmarks for what one should focus and scale. You know, we had great margins, great revenue, a low burn rate, we're profitable. So we all looped up together and we were like, hey, look how well this is doing, you know, with a little bit of focus. What if we all focus on it more? So we all, you know, agreed on our roles and responsibilities and started focusing on it a bit more, you know, and there's something really great about it because, you know, we did fund it and grow it ourselves. It's not a venture-backed company like some of my other companies. And it doesn't have that pressure of like, this has to work with this clenchy, you know, vibes. It's kind of more like, let's put it out there and see what she likes, you know?
Yeah, I know that you described some of your previous companies that have been venture capital funded, which in and of itself is amazing, but that there was more pressure, there was more work, and it didn't even flow as much. And then compare this to this is just really flowing insofar as self-funded. That's got to be nice that you have the comparison and wisdom to be like, wow, this really is something. I want to put my focus here. Tell me what some of the pros and cons are to bringing an investor on board.
Yeah, sure. You know, and we've had investors approach us. We have considered it. We are considering it slowly, maybe with the right investor, but we're not like dead set on it. We don't have to raise money. We can continue to put the money back in and grow it slowly. The benefit to that is, you know, the pressure's a little bit off to make this work. So we think about decisions methodically, you know, we watch the data points. It's a slower build, but it is, you know, more comprehensive on the one product. Like I could see if we took in money, you know, it's like, okay, well, if you have $500,000 in revenue on the one product, let's add 10 more products so that you can, you know, get this much more revenue.
So that's what more capital allows you to do. It allows you to create more product. It allows you to hire a team. It allows you to market more. What are some of the other things that maybe you would use that capital toward?
Well, scaling it. Yeah. You know, if you decide to do that, and in most cases, I would decide to do that. I might decide to do that here.
But like you said, it's like a marriage, so you got to pick the right people.
That's the thing. Yep.
Yeah, okay. But for now, you haven't found the right investor quite yet. Maybe that right investor will come along.
That's not the only reason. You know, I like it how we can just make decisions ourselves, and it just is so, it's just really a pacifistic relationship with my co-founders, and it's just, you know, lovely and easy and not, yeah.
Well, that's one of the things we talk about on this series a lot is how do you use entrepreneurship to cultivate more freedom and flexibility and fulfillment? And obviously everyone is an entrepreneur for a different reason. But if that's your reasoning, having an investor brings in a new dynamic where all of a sudden you kind of maybe at first wanted to be your own boss, but you really have another person to answer to. So I can see how that would really change the dynamic where right now, at least in the short term, while you don't have investors, you probably feel like you have a lot more freedom. Is that right?
Yes, I'm really enjoying the freedom aspect of RxBra right now. I've spent a lot of time, you know, having a board and fiduciary duty, and to be honest, I love it. I love all that stuff. I love raising money. I love running things, you know, by the book in that way. But there's something nice too to to just having it be a little easier. But again, RxBra is a one product company. If we did have 100 SKUs, it'd probably be necessary to have more people involved that had different complementary experience, to help scale that. Having a lot of investors in a big cap table, obviously has its benefits, because if you have a problem, you can get on the phone and hopefully, there's more people to help solve those problems. And it's also, nice to feel like you're on a journey with other people. But it's also hurtful to the company when, a lot of different people have a lot of different viewpoints. And typically, with founders, your investors like to call you and, see what's going on and give their input. And a lot of times what they don't realize is that they're very different. So you have to manage keeping everyone happy and respecting, their opinions and what they want to do with the company. So with my last company, I started doing a group call every other month so that everyone could hear everyone's, kind of suggestions and feedback all together, and, my thoughts on it. And, you can't do everything. So, what decisions we were going to make and why, because there was a time where I was just getting 8 or 9 calls a week. They don't realize that they're not the only one doing that. Your Whole Foods at 8 o'clock at night and they're just like, hey, how everything's going? You're like, brain's going to explode. It's awesome and it sucks and I'm freaking out and do you know what I mean? It's I can't,
it's a different
I'm
dynamic.
Holding groceries in my purse. I can't tell you that right now, but
so there's more opportunity for growth, but there are a lot of other dynamics to consider.
Right.
You obviously touched on the pros to right now not having investors on board. Let's talk about if someone is interested in potentially getting investors. First of all, what kind of company is eligible? And because I think a lot of times, especially the mainstream stories are these big tech companies, right? Uber, Facebooks of the world. But a lot more than that, including consumer products, are potentially eligible. So if you could touch on what kind of company is eligible, and then you're very good at pitching. You've won a lot of pitch competitions. You've successfully gotten investors. What are investors looking for that will bring them on board ultimately?
Yeah, sure. Entrepreneurs ask me this stuff all the time. An investable company is a company that is surviving and probably thriving and doing well, and a cash infusion would get that company more revenue faster, right? So much exponentially that it would theoretically see so much of a return in a faster amount of time that all the people who put in the money would see a return on their investment, right? It's to scale things. It's to multiply channels at once. It's not when you're dying. It's not because you have an idea and you need money to start it. That's friends and family money, your own money, get 3 jobs and figure it out. That's not somebody else's problem.
Every once in a while, a loan. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whatever. But it's not, institutionally investable. There are some things that do focus on really early in the idea stage. But that idea better be really good.
Yeah, totally. You better have a stellar team behind you. So if you don't have the physical product and the proof of concept already, you better have a really great team that an investor believes in. Yeah,
and it's usually in tech, so that it's not as expensive to build the thing.
Right. And then I would imagine when it comes to actual pitching, it's demonstrating all of that, right? Just demonstrating why you're the company that can grow and grow quickly with more capital.
Yeah, team and traction is typically the number one thing that, investors want to hear about.
Awesome. I think your business is also a really good example of how picking a niche and staying in a narrow focus can be really helpful. There's less competition. There's, a real market. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. That was one of the most surprising things for me about RxBra. I had grown a couple of different lingerie companies in the past that were, more broad, a little more glamorous, appealed to a wide audience. But with that comes a wide audience of competition and a higher keyword spend and a sea of options for the consumer to choose from. It's shocking to me how this product did get virility, which is something that I looked for with so many of my other, branded businesses. There's just so much out there these days, right? So having a niche product and speaking to them, saying, hey, we're the cute option for post-breast augmentation. you would think like that market can't be very big, right? Right. But everyone who is in that market really feels spoken to, right? Like you're exactly what I need right now. And so, they just buy it. And it has a technology component. It's like, well, if I might heal faster, that's, certainly, a plus. We don't really have that much competition. We usually come up, first, second, or third in the search rank, which is, cost me millions of dollars in my branded businesses.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, how can people keep up with you and learn more about your company?
Yeah, so RxBra.com and RxBra on, most social media platforms.
Awesome. Rachel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for today's show. As a reminder, show notes are available at empoweristapodcast.com, and I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe, review, or share this podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and have an amazing week.